Welcome back to Silent Minority Killers, Serial Killers Uncovered. In this episode, we dive into the chilling story of Juana Barraza, Mexico's notorious serial killer, known as La Mataviejitas, the Old Lady Killer. Juana terrorized Mexico City between 1998 and 2006. Juana's story begins in poverty and abuse, but ends in a prison sentence of 759 years. Juana was a mother, a wrestler, and eventually one of Mexico's most notorious serial killers. Tonight, we uncover how Juana's life of trauma and rage gave birth to a killer who preyed on the most vulnerable, elderly women who appeared to live alone. The following content contains discussion of violent crimes. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Welcome to Silent Minority Killers, Minority Serial Killers Uncovered. In this series, we explore the lives of minority serial killers, individuals whose stories are often overlooked, ignored, or misunderstood. Today, we focus on Juana Barraza, a woman whose life was shaped by extreme hardship, abuse, and loss, and who became one of Mexico's most notorious serial killers. Just across the Rio Grande from Laredo, Texas, lies Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, a city scarred by lots of cartel violence and constant cross-border tensions. Here, beliefs in Santa Muerte or Holy Death run deep. People from all walks of life believe that praying to her for protection, good fortune, or guidance. Juana Barraza's journey began with unimaginable suffering. Born into poverty, she endured relentless abuse at the hands of her mother. As she grew older, Juana channeled her pain into professional wrestling, adopting the persona La Dama del Silencio. But beneath the mask, a darker transformation was unfolding. Between 1998 and 2006, she targeted elderly women in Mexico City, gaining infamy as the Old Lady Killer. Her crimes shocked the nation, challenging stereotypes and forcing society to confront uncomfortable truths. Juana Barraza was born on December 27, 1957, in a rural part of Hidalgo, Mexico. She was the second daughter of Justa Barraza, her mother, and Trinidad Barraza, her father. Juana's early life was marked by neglect and violence. Her mother was indifferent, often abusive, and had little concern for her children's well-being. When Juana was just 3 months old, she was sent to live with relatives, while her mother went to live with another family. Refugio Sierra, Juana's stepfather, though he was kind to Juana, refused to allow Juana any formal education, believing women only needed to become housewives, so there was no need for them to be educated. Juana was illiterate, and she could only read her own name and nothing more. At age 12, Juana's mother sold her to a 40-year-old man named Jose Lugo in exchange for 3 beers. It's sad to know that a mother can sell her own child to a grown man for just 3 beers. Over the following years, Juana endured repeated sexual abuse and physical mistreatment. She suffered 2 miscarriages and gave birth to her first son, Jose Enrique, when she was 18 years old. This prolonged trauma left lasting scars on Juana, and experts believe it played a major role in shaping her later violent behavior. After escaping from her abuser, Juana moved to Mexico City with her son. Her life as an adult was very tumultuous. She entered multiple relationships, some of which became violent. In one instance, she struck a partner over the head with a chair. In 1982, Juana married and had a daughter, and the father of that child was not publicly known. That marriage ended in divorce 4 years later. To support herself and her children, she took on a variety of jobs, including domestic work, cleaning, and laundry. In 1989, the man who had been her stepfather, Refugio Sierra, the only person to show Juana kindness in her earlier adolescent life, passed away. That same year, she began a relationship and married Felix Juarez Ramirez, with whom she had 2 more children, bringing her to a total of 4 children. At the end of the 1980s, Juana was fascinated with lucha libre, Mexico's theatrical professional wrestling. She became a wrestler known as La Dama del Silencio, which meant the Lady of Silence, taking on the role of the villain or rudo. Her costume was elaborate, pink and silver, and her masked persona allowed her to command attention while concealing her identity. She performed regularly, earning around 500 pesos per match, in American money that would equal around $25, which was more than she made from her other jobs. But injuries eventually forced her to retire at the age of 35. Despite her wrestling career, Juana struggled financially. She was a single mother with 4 children. She began committing thefts that eventually escalated into violent crime. By the mid-1990s, Juana developed a method for preying on older women. She would pose as a nurse or government worker, claiming to check on elderly citizens' health and aid. While one accomplice distracted the victim, Juana would enter the home and steal money, jewelry, and religious items. Her choice of victims was not random. Psychologists suggest the elderly women reminded her of her mother, the person she held responsible for her suffering and violence. In killing them, she could symbolically confront the pain and helplessness she felt as a child at the hands of her mother. Over time, her crimes escalated beyond theft. She attacked women who lived alone in working or middle-class neighborhoods. She used strangulation methods that included telephone cords, scarves, and even stethoscopes. Many victims were beaten before their deaths. Juana became increasingly methodical. She would observe women in public spaces to ensure they were alone before following them to their homes. Her killings eventually became compulsive, driven by both rage and her desire for control. Juana maintained a personal altar filled with idols of Santa Muerte and Jesus Malverde, the patron saint of criminals. Some were draped with money, others with red or blue cloth to represent love or wisdom. Many of the items were gifts or stolen possessions from her victims. The most common was mostly black, a color meant for protection against black magic. Her victims were actually the people who needed protection against Juana, if only they knew it. The investigation into Juana's crimes faced many challenges. Witnesses described a tall, muscular figure, leading police to believe the killer was male. Hundreds of transgender individuals were questioned in a controversial sweep, but none were connected to the crimes. Fingerprints and partial evidence eventually linked Juana to 5 different prior murders, including one scene where she left a fingerprint on a medical radiograph or X-ray. By November 2005, authorities realized they were dealing with a serial killer, but they were still unaware that the person they sought was a woman and former wrestler and not a male. Juana murdered 82-year-old Ana Maria de los Reyes Alfaro. A tenant unexpectedly arrived home and saw Juana fleeing. Police were alerted and caught her just as she tried to enter the subway. In her possession, they found a stethoscope used in the murder, fake government identification, and lists of elderly women receiving aid, stolen money, and some religious items. The arrest shocked the nation. El Mataviejitas, feared across Mexico City, was not a man, as police had assumed, but was a woman with a wrestling background and a history of petty theft. Juana admitted to killing 4 women out of anger and rage, but investigators believed she was responsible for at least 16 murders, possibly over 40 murders. Her trial began in April 2008. Mexico's legal system uses judges, not juries. Fingerprints linked her to 5 crime scenes. Her explanation for her murderous actions was she acted out of anger and resentment. On January 31, 2009, Juana was sentenced to 759 years in prison, the longest sentence ever given to a woman in Mexico. While incarcerated, Juana married another inmate through a prison program. The marriage lasted only 1 year, with very limited contact. They met a total of 3 times. Today, Juana works within the prison helping other women exercise and take walks. A curious contrast to her violent past. Juana Barraza's crimes were not random. They were the result of decades of trauma, neglect, and unresolved rage. Psychologists studying her case point to several key factors. 1. Childhood trauma. Juana's early life was marked by extreme abuse. She was neglected by her mother and abandoned to relatives. She endured repeated physical abuse and sexual assault at the hands of José Lugo. She suffered multiple miscarriages as a teenager, a deeply isolating and painful experience. These formative experiences created a profound sense of helplessness, fear, and anger. According to experts, many serial killers who experience severe childhood trauma develop a compulsion to assert control later in life. For Juana, this need for control was expressed violently toward the elderly women who reminded her of her mother. 2. Targeted victims as symbols. Juana consistently chose elderly women who lived alone. Psychologists suggest that these victims represented her mother, the woman who caused her suffering. Each killing was a way to symbolically confront that trauma, giving Juana a sense of power she never had as a child. 3. Compulsive behavior. Her murders were not one-off acts of rage. Once she killed, the act became compulsive. Experts note that in cases like Juana's, the first murder reinforces a sense of satisfaction, making the killer repeat the behavior. The act of killing allowed her to externalize her anger and momentarily escape her own misfortune. 4. Emotional repression and lack of empathy. Years of abuse taught Juana to suppress her emotional responses. This repression contributed to her inability to empathize with others, a trait common among serial killers. Psychologists explain that many individuals who suffer severe early trauma struggle to process emotions normally, and violence becomes their way of asserting safety and control. 5. Symbolic acts and rituals. Her altars to Santa Muerte and the way she arranged stolen items were more than superstition. They were ritualized expressions of power, control, and protection, a psychological reinforcement of her own sense of dominance over life, death, and fate. 6. The role of loss and stress. Even as an adult, Juana faced instability, abusive relationships, financial struggles, and the deaths of loved ones. Her eldest son's violent death in 1999 marked another point of personal trauma, reinforcing feelings of anger and helplessness. Psychologists believe that these stresses exacerbated her compulsion to murder, fueling her need to control those she perceived as weak or vulnerable. Summary of psychological motivation. Juana Barraza's killings were a combination of childhood trauma, repressed rage, symbolic revenge, and compulsive gratification. Each murder was an attempt to reclaim control over a life where she had none, a recurring pattern reinforced by her early experiences and personal losses. Juana Barraza's story is a chilling reminder that monsters don't just emerge out of nowhere. They are shaped by trauma, abuse, and the systems that fail them. She was a daughter abandoned, a woman brutalized, and eventually a serial killer who took her rage out on the most vulnerable. But Juana is also part of a larger, overlooked truth. Many of history's most disturbing killers come from minority communities whose stories are often buried, misrepresented, or dismissed. That is why this series exists. Silent Minority Killers. Minority Serial Killers Uncovered was created to give voice to the cases that mainstream narratives often ignore, to peel back the silence and show how race, poverty, and circumstance can shape the darkest paths. Juana Barraza was a mother, a wrestler, a thief, and one of Mexico's most prolific serial killers. Her life and her crimes embody the reason this series was born: to uncover the hidden, the silenced, and the deadly truth about minority serial killers. Her life reminds us that behind every statistic is a person molded by circumstance, sometimes resulting in tragedy, sometimes in horror. Until next time, please like, comment, follow, and subscribe for more Silent Minority Killers content. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. at Silent Minority Killers. Please like, comment, follow and subscribe for more Silent Minority Killers content. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and TikTok at Silent Minority Killers.